As of late Friday, President Barack Obama said he had not made a final decision about a military strike against Syria, but he's considering a limited and narrow action in response to a chemical weapons attack that he says was carried out by Syria's government. The U.S. says the attack killed more than 1,400 people. Obama says the attack was a challenge to the world and threatens U.S. national security. I spoke with Oklahoma City University Associate Professor of Political Science Mohamed Daadaoui, an expert on the region, about the unstable situation in Syria. Mohamed, the UN Security Council met behind closed doors on Thursday to discuss what to do about Syria, discussing Western intervention. Where do you see that discussion heading?
I think what's interesting about the meeting in the United Nations Security Council is that it was called at the request of Russia. Maybe there has to be some discussions behind doors to bring more international coalition or an international multilateral framework on this. I doubt that something's going to come out of it, because the United States is probably determined to go it alone. There's reluctance, of course, for obvious reasons, between Russia and China, reluctance in Germany and France, and now we also hear that the United Kingdom, that was part of the initial agreement, of course, with the United States, is facing, or David Cameron, the Prime Minister, is facing also some blowback from the Parliament. So the United States now options are really limited when it comes to the international framework. But as far as the meeting itself, I don't think that any resolution or anything concrete, in order to punish Bashar al-Assad and the use of chemical weapons or anything of that sort.
Why do you think Russia and China are standing with him? Well,
they're standing for geopolitical reasons. I think one of it is the military and economic ties that Russia also has with that very deep that they have with Syria. But at the same time, I think is that Russia and China, they feel they were kind of duped after the Libyan intervention. Because they signed off with the United Nations Security Council resolution on limited no-fly zones, but the mission turned into a regime change. They felt that they were duped by the United States and the international community in the West in that. So they're digging their heels, I think, this time, and they are determined to back Syria, which their position is pretty clear, and I don't think it's ambiguous. They're just not backing regime change in Syria, and they want to argue more for a negotiated settlement between the regime and the various factions in the Syrian opposition, which is something that is also difficult, because we have to identify whom in the opposition the United States and the international community can speak to. And as you know, I think that there are various groups that are loosely affiliated with radical Islamist groups, Al-Qaeda and so on. And these groups are not really friendly to the interests of the West.
Prime Minister David Cameron has been arguing for Western intervention, but you think the United States will wind up going it alone?
I think because David Cameron right now, he summoned his MPs, from vacation, actually, to sign up on this authorization. But even from within his ranks, the conservative ranks, I think David Cameron is also facing a great deal of opposition. And largely because of the same reasons that even here in the United States, I think Democrats and Republicans are voicing, that it has to be really a clear-cut goal for why the United States want to launch military strikes in Syria. Is it a punitive, action, or it is for strategic reasons? What is it for the United States to actually punish Syria right now beyond the President Obama's red line and so on and so forth, other than punishing him for using the chemical weapons?
Knowing the region as you do, and the President is looking at possibilities and is talking about a compressed timeline, how do you see this playing out from a United States standpoint, and what is that ultimate gain?
I think there is, first of all, I think President Obama has to articulate that for the American people, especially because I think there is what we call, I think, a little bit of an Iraq syndrome of 2003. And we all know how the Bush administration mishandled that intelligence. And now there's, I think, the American people, there's not a great deal of public approval for it. The leadership in Congress want to exercise their consent and advise, of course, on the matter. But I think the United States and Obama has to articulate something beyond the red line. Why is this a red line as opposed to a couple months ago when the red line was already crossed? Or why is this a red line and the death of 100,000 Syrians is not? And I think that is where that administration has not articulated. Even yesterday, President Obama with PBS, he hasn't articulated really, I think, fully well to the American people. And what would end up happening, I think, is that to save face and credibility in the region is that the United States will engage in a surgical, limited military strike, a few cruise missiles, and I think it will be largely a slap on the wrist. But it's not going to change or drastically alter the landscape in Syria right now. And it could backlash against the United States in the region as well. There is a great deal of anti-American sentiment that would be exacerbated if the United States launched these military strikes.
It's a rapidly evolving situation. Mohamed Daadaoui, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.